I'm telling your birth story. I'm telling your birth story. I'm telling your birth story. Hello everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and say hello to baby Elodie. She's 6 days old today. I cannot believe it. So today's video I'm going to be telling you my birth story. Had every intention of vlogging it, but that never happened. We had some changes to the birth plan which I'll get into, but yeah, here is my VBAC birth story. So you may or may not have been following my VBAC planning in my other pregnancy vlogs, but I wanted to have a water birth on the midwife-led birthing unit. Having a VBAC itself was absolutely fine with the consultants. I was a prime candidate. I got to 10 centimetres and was pushing, so my body laboured last time. I only had a cesarean because my daughter changed position with her head and she got stuck. So I nearly got there, but this time round it was a bit of an up and down battle because I wanted to be on the midwife-led birthing unit and have a water birth. So that meant intermittent monitoring, which they were a bit about, but I got it signed off. I didn't end up having that birth, but I feel like the whole process of going through that, fighting for what I wanted, being heard, was just really healing, and I needed to go through that journey. So regardless of getting that, and I always knew that you know, there's always a risk that, you know, it's birth preferences may or may not happen. I could have ended up in another C-section, but I didn't, luckily. So yeah, I feel it was really healing to be heard, to have my choices acknowledged, and, you know, really feel positive towards this birth. It really helped me sort through some trauma of my last birth. Is Missy waking up? And yeah, I feel like I really needed to do that journey, whether or not I actually got the birth in the end. It really did me the world of good, just focusing my mind to where I wanted to go, if that makes sense. So I had Missy Moose here at 41 weeks and 1 day. So at 40 weeks I saw the midwife and we started to discuss what was going to be my plan of action. Have I got to like 42 weeks? Now, being a VBAC mum, different consultants have different kind of like what they like in terms of you going overdue. Like I was offered a sweep at 39 weeks and I was like, no, I'm not even due yet. I was offered an induction at 40 weeks. I was like, no. I was offered induction at 41 weeks. I was like, no. I said, I'm not even discussing anything unless I get to 41 weeks, and that gives us a week, you know, to 42 weeks. So I went in there and we basically discussed what going to be my plan of actions in terms of inductions. Now, the best chance of getting a successful VBAC is to go into a spontaneous labour, so you have no form of like inductions in terms of sweeps or actual inductions. So I really wanted to avoid that as much as possible. So on the day I was like, right, okay, let's try for a sweep, because even though that is a form of induction, it's not as invasive. We had talked and it looked like I was going to have the Cook's balloon at 42 weeks, which is the non-hormone one, which I think is, depending on your trust, your hospital, you're probably likely going to be the only one you're going to be able to have, because I don't like to give you hormones when you're a VBAC because of scar rupture risk and things like that. So yeah, so I decided to go for a stretch and sweep. I was a bit dubious whether they're going to work or not. I had two of my firstborn and they did absolutely nothing but cause me discomfort when having them. So I was like, oh, you know, is it really going to work this time round? But I was like, oh, I'd rather try that than actually get to the point where I need to have an induction. So my midwife went to perform the stretch and sweep and she just checked what was going on with my cervix and stuff like that. And it was really, really soft, but it was like still 3 centimetres long, and it was, she said, 1 centimetre dilated at the front and like 1/2 centimetre dilated at the back. So she just massaged the cervix rather than like do a full-on sweep. I didn't think that was going to do anything. I was like, well, it's obviously not the most favourable cervix. It may be really soft, but it's still like long and I'm barely dilated. So we booked in another one for 48 hours, and I thought, well, maybe that one might, you know, do something. So about an hour later, when I was at home, I had lost quite a big chunk of mucus plug. I had lost a few bits of like stringy bits of it like a week or so before, and I know that using your mucus plug isn't a clear indication that labour is going to start, because you can use it like days and days or weeks before you actually go into labour. And yeah, I didn't feel really anything until, doesn't matter, until that night. So about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, my contractions were definitely coming on thick and fast, and I was like, yeah, this is it. And then about 12 o'clock I got my bloody show, and I was like, yeah, this is definitely labour now. This isn't like intense Braxton Hicks. So I called the triage unit, which is I think my old hospital was called a day assessment unit. It's basically where you know, go in and they check you over before they admit you onto any kind of like labour or maternity like birthing unit. Mainly because I got so many mixed signals about when I should call them, being a VBAC like birth, because some said as soon as you get your contractions you have to go in and be monitored because of the risk of scar rupture, and others said no when they're like regular. So I called her up and then she said no, wait till they're a bit more regular, and I was like, well, fine, I'd rather be at home anyway. So I then called my mum, who just got off a shift at her hospital, and I was like, oh no, can you come stay at mine, because of my daughter Isla, she was asleep. So that, my mum lives about an hour away, so I was like, right, I'll get in the bath, I'll run a nice bath. I was using my Labour Day oils and my acupressure comb and the water, and that was really helping with my contractions, and I was just breathing through, and I was in there for about an hour, and they were just coming on thicker and faster than I remember with my first daughter. So when my mum got here, I was using my Freya app contraction timer, and it was telling me that it was like they were getting regular to go into hospital. They'd got up to like over 1 minute, and I can't remember how many minutes apart. So I called triage again. I was like, I need to come in, and they're like, yeah, fine. So we headed to the hospital. I got into triage, and we were there all of 2 minutes. They hooked me up to the monitor, and she was like, I need to pull the emergency buzzer. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, I've been in this hospital 2 minutes and you're already pulling the emergency buzzer. I was like, this isn't happening. And the reason was because she was brachycardic. She had a low heart rate. Well, when they put her on, which yeah, so everyone came rushing in, and I thought at that point, obviously I was worried for her, don't get me wrong, it's always, you know, your baby's and your safety is always your first thought, but I thought to myself, well, that's my VBAC dreams over and done with. I'm going to be wheeled down for an emergency C-section already. I've been in this hospital 2 minutes and they're going to wheel me for an emergency C-section. But they monitored me for a while. They put a cannula in. It was really like, anyone that's been in emergency situations just knows it's like a bit overwhelming, and we were both, me and Adam, like, just what the hell. But they monitored her and her heart rate picked up and she was absolutely fine. But at that point, that's when my water birth birthing plans were over, which I thought I'd be like, I had it in my head that I'd be really upset if I never got the birth I wanted, like in terms of water birth. Like, I was in two minds. I am a Gemini, because on one side of my mind I'm like completely rational and I know things can change and stuff like that, and then the more emotional side of me was like, I need this. But yeah, when it came to it, I was completely fine that I wasn't getting my water birth. Obviously my daughter is the most important thing, and because of this issue with the heart, like, I wasn't going to take any more risks, and I was completely fine with it. And I think that's the most important thing when it comes to your birth plans, is just being fine. And obviously you've got to adapt to changes, but if I needed to be heard or speak up, I would have found the strength to do it this time. But I was absolutely fine with going on the labour ward and being monitored. I wasn't going to risk that, and that was fine for me. So they took me round to the labour ward, and this was about 2:30. So I think we went into triage about 2, and then by 2:30 we went round to labour ward. They checked me in triage and I was 3 centimetres dilated, and I was like, Jesus. I was like, we're going to be in for a long old slog. I'm not going to have it probably till this evening. I was like, here we go, long old day. So we got down to the labour ward, and then they were asking me about what pain relief I'd like, and I was thinking, well, if I'm not getting my water birth and doing it that way, I'm going to opt for the epidural, because I was like, first of all, these contractions are intense, a lot more, like, they were a lot worse than what I thought with my first daughter. And I said, like, I only want the mobile one, because with my first daughter, I had one that I just couldn't move with, and I was like, I only want, you know, I want to be able to maneuver myself and things like that. So they were like, yeah, we'll give you the mobile epidural anyway. And so that takes a bit of time, because you've got to wait for the anaesthetist, and then when he finally gets to the room, then it takes a while for them to prep and get it in your back, and then it takes time to kick in. So they had barely finished my epidural and got the medication in. It hadn't like started working yet. And I was like, oh, I need to poo. I was like, I really need to poo. I was like, and she's like, you getting a lot of pressure in your bum? I was like, yeah, I know, I'm gonna shit myself. Basically, I was like, I need to poo. Again, because I had I don't know what kind of epidural with my daughter, my firstborn, I didn't feel anything. I couldn't even tell you when I was having, like, they had to guide push me, because I didn't have any like pressure pains when I was pushing, because I felt nothing. This time round I felt everything, because when at this stage, my midwife knew something was going on. She could see a change in me, so she was like, look, I know you've only been checked 2 hours ago, she said, but I need to check you now, because you're saying that you're getting all these pressures and you look like, you know, your body's going to be ready to push. So she checked me and she was like, yeah, she was like, you're 10 centimetres now. So she was like, just go with your body, whatever your body tells you, just go with it and push down with it. And she called another midwife in, and she was like, right, I need a delivery kit, we're there now. And the other midwife was like, really? Because it literally, I've been in that room 2 hours and I've gone from 3 centimetres to 10 centimetres, which obviously is amazing because it was quick, but also it was really, really intense, the contractions and the pain, I think, where it's happening so fast. Because obviously when you have your slow and steady contractions, you're getting a bit of a break, where mine just ramped up so much. I was like, by the end of it, I was just getting nothing. So yeah, within 2 hours, I've gone from 3 centimetres to 10 centimetres, and then my body was ready to push. And I literally pushed her out in 4 minutes with 2 pushes. So the first push, my waters hadn't broken yet, and they were all like stepping out the splash zone every time I was pushing and having a contraction, because they were like, these waters are gonna burst, and they did. And yeah, I've never experienced the kind of pressure or the pain before, and I screamed like a little bitch through my gas and air. I didn't think I'd be much of a screamer, but I was like like into it, like when I was pushing out. And so the first push, the waters broke and they did projectile like, and then her head came out. And I tell you what though, the relief when your waters break and that pressure goes away from the waters, like, it's amazing. Like, I again, my waters were broken at 10 centimetres with my first one, but I didn't feel anything. But yeah, once they burst, the release of pressure was just so good. And then 2 minutes later, I had another contraction and pushed her out of her body. I managed to get my delayed cord clamp in and my skin to skin, so they put me straight onto my chest, and they left her there, and they left you know, her unchopped until my placenta stopped pulsating. And then Adam cut the cord, and then I had to deliver the placenta. So Adam took her for a bit of skin to skin, because I had to end up like the labour beds, they had to manoeuvre it, so it's almost like I was in a seating squatting position, put a bucket underneath me, and I kind of like let gravity do its thing, because I had a natural third stage, so I didn't have the injections. I just wanted it to come out naturally. So yeah, I was just over a bucket, just kind of trying to squeeze it out. That again was really weird for me, because I had not done that being a C-section mum previously, so that was weird. And I did have a slight postpartum hemorrhage just over the line of like the norm, but they said my iron levels were so good before like birth that they didn't, even with the blood loss, I didn't see that it was going to cause me an issue because my iron levels were so high. So good old Postpartum, the supplements I was taking in my pregnancy beforehand, like I didn't have an iron deficiency, I was just using them. They've obviously done really well and done their job because they made sure that I didn't feel crappy after losing blood. I had a 1st degree and 2nd degree tear which I needed stitching up, and I feel like the stitching actually took longer than the birth itself, but in terms of healing wise, it's not been as horrific as like even going to the toilet, like you get like people say the first poo and the wee stinging, but it's not actually been that bad. Maybe I just got away with it because obviously I haven't torn my perineum, and I think my where I've torn is away from like where I pee from, so luckily that's been okay. It's sore, it's tender, you know, it's still so much better than my C-section. I was pretty poorly after my C-section as well, but this time yeah, I feel like it's a lot better recovery wise. I was up having a shower like an hour or so after, like I just wanted to wash the blood off. That was amazing because I couldn't even get out of bed for like 3 days after my when I had my infection and my C-section. So yeah, the recovery's been so good. I feel like a million times better than I did my first birth. I did a lot of prep and I've done a lot of stuff to put me in an optimal position for birth and for my recovery postpartum this time. So yeah, I'm 6 days postpartum and I just feel fantastic. Like I've almost stopped bleeding already in day 6, whereas I bled for 6 weeks with my other one. I feel a lot better, like just in terms of everything really, and I think that just, I feel like I a lot of that to the prep and things I've done leading up to birth and the things I'm doing now to make myself feel better. But in terms of like a VBAC birth and recovery, yes, it is 10 times better for me anyway. And I know that people with planned sections actually have a really good recovery as well, because you know, you haven't been labouring and you are mentally prepared for it, and you know, generally you've probably been there before and your body knows what it's like. So it's hard for me to compare a VBAC to a planned section because I've not had a planned one. I've only just had the emergency with infections afterwards and a hospital stay for a week. But yeah, that is my VBAC birth story. I hope that you enjoyed it, whether you just like listening to like birth and labour stories, or you know, you're wanting to have a VBAC. There's a great group on Facebook that I ask a lot of questions for that are linked down below. If you've got any questions about VBAC, then just pop them down below or go over to my Instagram at leonie.parker. Happy to answer any questions there. And yeah, I did it. I did it. I achieved my VBAC and I am so, I'm just so proud of myself and, you know, just so happy. So I will see you guys in another video. Goodbye.